To you from the dry and dusty forests of Western Australia for API Rally Australia. This is the staging area for the final day of what has been a marvellous contest that may well decide the World Championship. 3 drivers in contention, and there's been lots of drama and controversy already as recently as last night. Barry Sheen, welcome to you. Amazing stuff at Langley Park.
Well, yeah, the Langley Park round last night, Tommy Mackinnon jumped the start in front of 20,000 people on television, etc., etc. So Carlos Sainz said he went to bed last night thinking, oh, well, they've penalised Mackinnon a minute. When he got up this morning, all of a sudden the minute penalty was gone. So Carlos Sainz is more than a little bit miffed, and what it does, it makes a complete mockery of the regulations, because it's obvious to all that he jumped the start, and that's what you get the penalty for. So I feel really sorry for Carlos.
Just part of what has been an incredible contest this weekend. John Smales with expert comments this afternoon as we cover the final stage of API Rally Australia. John, the competition has been deep.
So deep, Bill, that there have been 6 cars, 6 teams, which have shared stage wins over the last 2 days. We're talking at the moment about 40 seconds only separating the top 6 teams in this rally going into the last 2 or 3 stages, and Mackinnon is closing on Sainz at an incredible rate. Now, back through the field, the competition is just as intense. Michael Guest, the Australian, has been trading stage for stage with 3 times world champion Gustavo Trellis, and Guest is leading the production car class.
Terrific stuff at Barry. Perth has really risen to the occasion once again. It seems to be bigger and better than ever, and the crowds here, amazing.
Quite incredible. Well, you saw how much traffic we had getting in this morning. I mean, everybody's turned out. The flies have turned out. The police with their radar guns have turned out. And I'm not saying anything else.
John, the Australians have been terrific this weekend once again, showing that given the right opportunity, they can compete with the world's best.
The major opportunity they need, Bill, is more time in the vehicles. The world's best drive at competitive speeds all the times. The Australians don't. That's the only difference. An Australian could be a world championship contender within a couple of years, given the right car.
We hope one day that will happen, but right now we're talking about the World Championship in 1998. The 3 men in contention have all been there and done that before, but they really want to win this one.
It's shaping as the closest World Rally Drivers' Championship this decade. Just 2 rounds remaining and still 3 contenders in the fight.
Normally you have 2 drivers that are in with a shout towards the end of the year, a sort of serious shout of the championship, but it's 3 now, and well, hopefully if it goes according to plan here, we need to win the rally, and then it's going to be really close for the RAC at the end of the year, and any one of the 3 of us could win, so it's going to be an exciting finish, but we really need to win this rally first of all.
I'm here for winning. I think the championship, at the moment, it is important to come here to Australia and try to win.
Spain's Carlos Sainz and Luis Moya lead the title chase on 50 points, but find themselves continually under siege as the fast-finishing Tommy Mackinnon on 48 points and Colin McRae on 42 points rapidly reel them in.
I think that Colin's very confident in his own ability. The Subaru is very good, but out and out, Tommy and the Mitsubishi, they're on a roll at the moment, and Tommy's a very talented driver in these circumstances. He can make the car work in these difficult roads.
When I came first time here, 90 with Group N car, I won it immediately in my first time here, and after that it was few days I didn't come here, 95 again, and since that it's been always very good. I have been enjoying very much.
Carlos's record is far from impressive in Australia, and many fear the worst for the man they call El Matador. With only the Rally of Great Britain, McRae's home event, to follow, the importance of winning in Australia has never been so great. McRae in particular knows he can transcend from outsider to favourite with a win in the pebbly forests of Western Australia.
Well, yeah, I mean, we've won it the last 3 years. I'm very confident there. You know, the car works really well in the British forest, so I mean, this is the important one. We've got to. I'm not thinking about RAC, I'm thinking about Rally Australia at the moment. I've got to win here.
Only a handful of seconds separated eventual winner Colin McRae from Tommy Mackinnon at last year's API Rally Australia. But the impetus of a fast-finishing Mackinnon will be hard to kill. It's a momentum that's even surprised the Finn himself.
Of course, I knew that Rally of Finland would be good for me, and I was lucky again to win it. and but then we went to Sanremo and we worked very hard, and that was excellent win for me.
Sainz is well conditioned for battles that go the distance and cannot be discarded. Last year's Rally Australia misfortune proved his undoing, but this year he welcomes the challenge.
I don't see any reason why I cannot win this year. I'm confident with the car, and so I'm confident generally.
It's quite possible this weekend that Colin McRae could take a win, that Tommy Mäkinen could take third and Carlos Sainz take fifth. Now, if that happens, they'll all be on 52 points going into the final round, the RAC Rally in the World Championship. That's how amazing it's been. Well, Parc Fermé, it's one of the focal points of any rally, and in particular this year, when we're getting down to the business end of the season, it's very important. It's where scrutineering takes place. It's where preparation takes place. It's rigidly policed, and if you think that rallies are won and lost on the road, check this out.
Pre-event scrutineering is the only time that you'll see cars being worked on in Parc Fermé. Of the 72 hours of API Rally Australia, only 4 are spent in flat-out competition and only 5.5 are spent in formal service. For the rest of the time, the cars are either on liaison stages or they are locked away in Parc Fermé where they can't be touched. The rules of API Rally Australia are very strict indeed. Remember last year, Tommy Mäkinen had a flat battery in Parc Fermé and push-started his car. That earned him a 30-second penalty and cost him the rally. Rallying is supposed to be a test of vehicle endurance as much as it is of driver skill. That's why if a car needs service outside a regular service area, only the driver and co-driver are allowed to work on the car, and then only with the tools on board. They are allowed to take outside advice so they can get on the radio and ask their crew for assistance, but only they can work on it. Now, if they're tempted to go down a side street and get a bit of illicit help, well, the advice is don't do it because it means instant disqualification. In fact, for the leading world rally cars, they're all now fitted with a GPS sender unit which goes straight back to rally control, and rally control will know when they've gone off the route. So Big Brother really is watching them.
John Smales there, of course, with expert comments this afternoon as we walk up towards the refuelling area here at Bunnings, and that is also strictly policed in any World Championship rally. We'll be back on the other side of the break with more RPM, and we'll be talking to Derek Ringer, a former world champion, about his thoughts on API Rally Australia.
Left, braking 75.5. Medium right plus to medium left plus. 30 turn K left minus.
Hi, I'm Richard Burns and you're watching RPM on Channel 10.
This is RPM at API Rally Australia, and with me now a man who won the World Championship in 1995. He won this rally in 1994. He's also been second here, fourth here. I think he likes it here, as a matter of fact. Welcome to RPM, Derek Ringer.
Yeah, I do like it here. It's very nice to be here, and it's a lovely day for this show, I think.
You had a lot of success with Colin McRae, of course, particularly in API Rally Australia. Why is it so good, Derek?
Well, it's one of the friendliest events that we come to during the year. The weather's usually nice, especially now they've moved it a couple of months into November, and it's generally tends to be the most competitive event, usually a very tight finish to this rally.
Particularly fast this year. I mean, the pebbles, the unique shape of them, they call marbles in colloquial terms here, and that makes it very treacherous, but they've graded the roads here this year, which has made them even faster.
Yes, I think they are faster, but they're just as tricky. We've seen a couple of incidents already. Colin slipped off the road yesterday for a few seconds. Richard obviously had a roll and lost all the lead that he'd built up on the first day, and I think we may see some more.
It's been an amazing World Championship, in fact, all round, Derek. You mentioned there Richard Burns rolling. I mean, there have been several dramatic incidents throughout the season that have cost plenty of points for the top contenders.
Yeah, really, nobody's had a really clean and dominant run. Possibly at the moment, Tommy's the person who's come to form just for the end of the year. He won in Sanremo on the tarmac, really against the odds, and obviously in his home event in Finland, a really dominant performance. And he's been setting some incredible times here as well.
So Burns took control of this rally on day one, then Carlos Sainz bought into the action. Were you surprised at the dominance that Burns showed on the first day, though?
Well, surprised a little. I knew he'd go very well, but I don't think anyone expected him to have a lead of over a minute at the end of the first day. Really, he's been the story of this year. He's come on fantastically, and he's now a real star.
Yeah, we're going to talk about driver changes. Frank Vincent in our feature story talks about what's in store for us in 1999, but there is a lot of talent around, Derek, and also the motivation for the manufacturers to develop world rally cars has certainly made it extremely competitive and very interesting.
Yes, I think now we're looking at Peugeot coming in again next year. That should be a fairly strong performance. They're only going to do 6 rallies, I think, next year, but by the year 2000, I expect them to be one of the dominant teams. Ford have a new car for next year, and of course Colin going to drive for Ford. That's an exciting prospect, and really Tommy staying where he is, that's the established package, and they look very strong at the moment.
McRae's last year with Subaru, of course, as you mentioned there, still highly motivated. He gave them a bit of a start this year in the championship and has given them a start going into this rally, but he's on a charge on the last couple of days.
Yes, I think Colin's going very quickly now. If the rally comes down to a very close finish, then I feel Colin could be the person just to do that. He really can work under pressure, and if it comes down to the wire in the last couple of stages, he'll be the one that can really stand the pressure and perform.
Now, right after this program, we're going to update everybody on what's happened in API Rally Australia so far, and also telecast live the final and probably conclusive stage right here at Bunnings. Derek, this is a spectacular piece of road, as short as it is.
Yes, it's one of the most famous short pieces of road now in the world. The downhill over the jumps and into the Ford and Bunnings. It's a real roller coaster ride, a bit like Finland. It's really down to driver commitment, and I'm sure it's going to make for some spectacular footage.
Well, they say the marbles here, of course, not like snow and ice, but in a sense, it's kind of a cross between snow and ice and dirt because it makes it so slippery.
Yeah, it's very slippy, but the interesting thing here is that as each car passes, it sweeps the road clean. So you get a situation where the road becomes faster for those travelling a little bit further down the field. And we're looking now at Carlos running first car on the road. That's a little bit of a disadvantage on the last day. Tommy's close behind him, and then we're into 3 or 4 cars further down. Richard and Colin, they could have some advantage there.
And I have to ask you this year, our special guest commentator this weekend, and it's great to have you doing that with us, but how do you feel? You're in amongst it all, the action, the smell of the fumes, the smell of the dust, there's plenty of that, plenty of flies as well. Are you missing it out there, and what's the difference between being on the other side of the camera?
Well, it's certainly been interesting being here. It's, I think, going to be a fascinating finish to the event. Looking at the way things are going, I'm actually quite glad I'm not in one of these top cars. I think it's going to get a little bit exciting.
Well, there's a lot of pressure on because there's only a handful of seconds separating the top drivers going into the final day.
Yes, and as I say, it's going to get tighter, I'm sure of that, because of the positions on the road and the nature of these Bunnings stages. So I really feel we're in for a cracker of a finish.
And finally, I have to ask you, as a member of the Co-Drivers Union, do you guys get enough credit winning a world championship? Is it enough?
Well, I don't really think so, but it's a team sport, and really the mechanics, the engineers, everybody associated with it backs the driver up. The driver's obviously the focus, but yeah, there's a hell of a lot of people that are responsible for their winning.
Well, Derek, thanks for your time. We'll catch up with you later in the telecast.
Okay, thank you.
Derek Ringer, former world champion there, and of course, one of a handful of people here who make API Rally Australia so great. A great cast of personalities and characters, and right in the thick of all that World Championship atmosphere is a host of Australian drivers, some of whom will finish in the top 10 today with a bit of luck. They certainly have done in the past. Let's have a look at the Aussies in contention this weekend.
For local rally drivers, API Rally Australia represents a huge opportunity to compete and rub shoulders with the best in the world. Some even describe it as their equivalent to the V8s at Bathurst. It's the climax of their racing year.
I'm looking forward to it this year, and the car's really good, and I'm looking forward to getting into it.
I really believe we have something very special here that we can build into something super special.
It's the event of the year, the one event you work hardest for.
In Group A, our best hopes lie with a formidable trio. Neil Bates, 3 times Australian Rally champion, will again line up with co-driver Coral Taylor. But this year they'll drive under the Toyota Team Sweden banner. Both are keen to forget last year's well-publicised crash and focus on achieving their best result.
Our focus would be to be the first car behind the factory cars, and to do that we'd need to be possums.
Winner of the Australian Rally Championship for the last 3 years, Possum Bourne, will also be out to repeat last year's brilliant top 6 finish. Although a Kiwi, Possum bases his team in Australia and regards this more or less like another home rally.
But the #1 priority is to get it round and try and wrap up the Manufacturers' Championship for Subaru and the Australian Rally.
The third is Ed Ordinsky. The former production car champ is the third car in the Mitsubishi Rally Art team, alongside reigning world champ Tommy Mäkinen and Brit Richard Burns.
Realistically, the quality of the field in this year's event is probably the best ever in a World Championship rally. To break into the top 10 would be just fantastic.
But the Aussies at API Rally Australia aren't just Bates, Bourne and Ordinsky. In total, there are 38 Australian cars and another 9 co-drivers in different teams. In the F2 category, Sydney-sider Wayne Bell will be flying the Aussie flag in the second factory Hyundai as teammate to Kenneth Eriksson. Newly crowned Australian F2 champ Rick Bates, brother to Neil, will also line up in yet another Rally Australia. Group N, or the production car category, will see a great Aussie battle between 2 Subaru drivers, Rally New Zealand winner Michael Guest and Australian champion Cody Crocker.
And this is probably a good chance for me to show what I'm made of against, international competition and the best in the world. And if we can show that we're right up there, then who knows what's in store for next year.
I look forward to the competition with him, but at the end of the day, we're both Subaru drivers, and Stoll and Trellis are both Mitsubishi drivers, and at the end of the day, we need a Subaru to beat a Mitsubishi.
The Australian drivers here in contention at API Rally Australia performed very well last year. A 6th placing for Ed Ordinsky was just absolutely outstanding in a rally that had a very high attrition rate. This year, who knows? They are around the top 10. Possum Bourne at the moment, going into the final day, the only driver in the top 10. But anything can happen in API Rally Australia with 4 stages to go. We'll bring you all the action this afternoon. After the break on RPM, we go to the heart of race control, and we go and talk to a few of Derek Ringer's mates, the co-drivers, the unsung heroes. You might say, roll on, Richard Burns. Some of the highlights there from API Rally Australia, in fact, the World Rally Championships this year, but that incident with Richard Burns was critical to yesterday's round. He took charge on the first day, but they all caught up with him in a hurry. It's been that kind of rally. Richard, of course, going to Subaru next year. Colin McRae with Subaru next year. He's going to Ford. So there's been a few driver changes mooted, but right now Colin McRae is still in with a chance of winning Subaru, not only the Manufacturers' Championship, but the World Championship for himself. He won here last year. Why can't he do it again? Well, Colin, firstly, you're coming in as the defending champion, so to speak, and I guess in a sort of a similar situation to last year where you're chasing the championship leader.
Yeah, they say it's always easier to chase than to be in front, and I suppose it's right in a way because the guy in front's got it in his hand and all he can do is lose it, where I haven't got it and I can only gain it, so it's a bit easier to push that wee bit extra.
And a different rally this year in a sense in Perth because it was mentioned they've graded the roads and so there's a little less rock and they're supposedly a lot faster. How have you found it?
Yeah, certainly the road conditions better and they are quicker, they're wider. Yeah, they were already very quick and they're even quicker again, so it makes it very difficult.
The rally this year seems bigger and better than ever. I mean, just the atmosphere at Langley Park seems very special this year.
Yeah, they do a great job down here, and obviously, as you say, it gets bigger and bigger every year, and it's good for the people around Perth to come round and have a look and see what it's all about.
Do you get hyped up about it? Do you get sort of caught up in the atmosphere?
You do a bit, yeah. I mean, it's you can see everybody jumping around and cheering you on. Obviously, all our sponsors have their houses along here to look down in the track, so it's good.
Nicky, how do you feel about it?
No, I think it's great fun. I mean, it's good sport. Obviously, you do get hyped up a little bit. I mean, especially side by side. I mean, it's totally different to a normal stage. But no, it's just a bit of fun. I mean, you can only lose a rally on a stage like this, not win it. So we just get out there, throw it sideways, and have as much fun as well.
And now you move next year, of course. How important is it to do well and finish off the season strongly for Subaru, Colin?
Yeah, well, for Subaru and for myself, obviously, and Nick, we really want to win the championship. Subaru want to have the driver's title as well, so everybody in the team are really working flat out to do that, so this is an important event.
Is it going to be tougher next year with a car that really we haven't seen a lot of yet, the new Ford?
It's going to be tough, certainly. Any new car is going to be tough in the beginning because we've got a lot of testing and development to do, and we haven't got a lot of time. That's the big thing. So the first half of the year is really going to be test and development on events.
It's a long season, isn't it, Nicky?
Absolutely. No, I mean, and the rally's not won until you're over the last finish line, almost. Hopefully we're going to take the battle down to the last round in the RAC, and hopefully we're going to win it.
Nicky Grist there, co-driver to Colin McRae, and those people are just so important. I guess for the single drivers, this is the closest thing they have to being married. They spend so much time with their co-drivers, and important time too on the road. Without them, they are in big, big trouble. Let's take a closer look at the men on the other side of the driver's seat.
2, 1, flat left, 70, left max long to slow, flat right, 40, medium left minus long.
A co-driver's job is tough and demanding. It requires the utmost concentration, nerves of steel, and an ability to communicate in a strange kind of language.
Very long medium, right. 70.
There's a very special driver-co-driver relationship, and that relationship is probably quite different to any other form of motorsport because you have got two people in the car, and those two people have to have 100% trust and commitment to what they're doing. And Neil has to trust totally what I'm telling him is correct.
Co-drivers take the heat off drivers. They're the guys who dot the I's and cross the T's, as well as write the script in a high-speed game where survival depends on trust and teamwork.
40, medium left minus 30, flat left 60.
I think you'll find it tends to be the driver's style. I mean, I'm reading back notes to Richard that he's dictated to me, so it's not like it's my notes.
There's variations in language as well, which obviously is a big thing. But at the end of the day, yes, every driver has his own little particular system. Some may have extra bits and pieces which mean something to him.
Even though there are over 94 entrants in this year's Rally Australia, speaking 12 different languages, the co-drivers have a lingo of their own. Here I have Nicky Grist's pace notes for the Langley Park Special Super Stage. And, well, it's very difficult to follow. Fortunately, the man's with us, and let's get him to talk us through it.
Okay, it's not double Dutch, it is English, but it's... these notes start in this lane, right-hand lane. It's a 70-metre straight from the start, which takes us up into a long 6 left, which is telling me it's a long corner, it's 6 gear and directions to the left. And is a short straight. Then we've got a right tightens to 2 plus. It's a right tightening corner into a 2nd gear plus means on throttle.
5 left plus opens into right tightens to 3.
Co-drivers must also learn to put their foot down when things get out of hand.
3 left over crest. Listen to me, Colin.
We have had our moments where things tend to get a little bit ragged at times, and when you feel it's getting that way, it's always nice just to say, well, you know, tidy it up, Colin, or, you know, just cool it.
I would say that if it's a young driver who is let's say, that he doesn't listen so much for the pace notes, and you notice that the speed is growing up all the time, so then you have to calm down him a little bit. But
the pay for these unsung heroes peaks at about $500,000. And while they have to be content with the fortune and not the fame, there's no complaints. They're working towards the same goal as everyone else, winning.
30 left over crest. Okay. Well done, chap. Excuse me. Spot on.
Here we are at the results centre at Bunnings on the final day of API Rally Australia. Lots of hardware in there, lots of software as well, making this thing all run smoothly. But it all goes back, in a sense, the spider web all comes back to the centre, and that is race control back at the Sheraton Hotel. Let's take a look at that right now.
Sorry, Info 2, Rally Base.
NASA control? Well, not quite, but some of the technology in this room is also involved in the Space Shuttle launch. This is how far the World Rally Championship has come.
Kenneth Erickson, when he arrives at your control...
Command Centre monitors 25,000 square kilometres, tracking every car on every stage via GPS satellite. About 2,500 officials and competitors are relying on the 9 people here in this room, not just to monitor the rally itself, but also to make critical decisions. You might notice this chair here is slightly bigger than the others. That's because it belongs to the clerk of the course, Gary Connolly himself. Not only here do they monitor if there have been any breaches of regulations, but they also have to make key decisions about medical emergencies and, of course, the start and finish of every stage.
59, it's live, it's cleared.
What we've got up here is a French GPS tracking system. Inside each car is a GPS unit mounted on the roof, connected to a receiver. It gets the position, location to within about 10 metres on the Earth's surface. Then it transmits a radio signal via our aeroplane, or one of our 4 aeroplanes, right back here to the Sheraton Hotel headquarters. And then we display it. We can monitor car by car. As you can see up there, we've got the speed of the cars. Some of them have stopped waiting in service parks at the moment. On the stage, you can see the speed they're going. The blue line shows the direction they're facing at each time. So it really is a very good safety device for us and a good way of picking when there's a problem.
Can you handle it by yourself? How many are there? How many service cars are involved? Okay, well, do your best and let me know how you go. Thank you.
As you'll see later, we've got people that are setting up each of the special stages. We've got 24 special stages over 3 days, and within each stage you might have up to 100 people working, and that is everything from marshals to ambulances, doctors, rescue people, timekeepers, and they all have to be put in place on time because this rally must run on time. So half of the command centre is dedicated to setting that up. The other half is dedicated to tracking the competitors once they go through the stages. Now, if we have a competitor go missing, we have to find out whether he's just broken down or whether he's crashed, and if so, maybe he's injured.
Medical and go ahead.
Okay, well, the Deputy Clerk of Course is basically, during the event, responsible for tracking of the vehicles, monitoring them for safety. And, of course, Adrian can step into my role at any time. He's totally familiar with everything I do as Clerk of Course. My job really is to supervise and just monitor what's going on and take key decisions in case there's a major emergency. Rally Base, Andy Van Can, sets up all the stages, monitors the 0 cars and declares the stages ready for competition. An Assistant Rally Base, John Poyner, is responsible for all the aviation operations, airborne repeaters, and is there to assist Andy in setting up the stages.
From dawn till dusk, with little chance to rest, the officials at these monitors carry enormous responsibility.
Red alert. Australia likes to think it leads the world in not only the operational side of API Rally Australia, which the sponsor itself, API, has had a lot to do with in developing technology, but in the promotional side too. The Langley Park Superstage, for example, is an innovation that has been, well, many rallies around the world have attempted to adopt it. I don't think anyone has quite done it as well as we have. But there's another new technology coming up this year that has been introduced by Microsystems. Now, this is something they want to take around the world as well. It's a first here in Australia, and it's a way of disseminating the rally results directly to the teams via laptop computers. Now, the obvious problem with doing that, especially out here in the middle of the bush, is getting that information via cable to everyone's laptop in the various team tents. Well, they've found a way of doing it not via cable at all. It's called Aeronet. That's the term Microsystems has given to it, and it's actually via a signal. So it'll be a microwave, I think, signal from the laptops in the various tents and staging areas to the results centre itself. That is a first for API Rally Australia. I'm sure the teams will welcome that very much, and we thank Microsystems for letting us know about that, which is a very, very recent innovation. We have more on API Rally Australia coming up, but particularly the World Championship, where Frank Vincent, after the break, will take a look at the changes in store for us in 1999.
Hi, I'm Gwyneth Evans. You're watching RPM on Channel 10.
Well, no prizes for guessing. It's been a marvellous World Championship. It has to be. This is the second last round, and there are still 3 drivers in contention for it. But next year promises to be even better. 1999, we'll see drivers switching teams. We'll see new cars and actually new teams as well. Frank Vincent takes a closer look at what should be a great year next year.
1999 will represent a season of change for most teams and drivers of the World Rally Championship. Several top-flight competitors will sport new colours in their quest for glory following a late-season buying spree that has left leading manufacturers' bank balances considerably lighter. Pro-Drive Subaru will undergo the most noticeable facelift of all.
Yeah, it's the fact that obviously Colin's leaving for Ford, Piero's going to SEAT means that with myself, Juha and Bruno in the team, there's going to be quite a big shake-up in there. It'll obviously mean that we're going to be very, very strong there, because I think we cover just about every event, then we're going to be strong everywhere.
The much publicised departure of former world champion Colin McRae after a 7-year association has led to the return of a full-scale 3-car attack, spearheaded by rising young star Richard Burns.
Well, there's going to be a lot of work to do before the year starts, obviously. I've got to learn the car, I've got to learn the tyres. We're going to be doing a hell of a lot of testing in December and before Monte Carlo in January as well. And we're just going to knuckle down and get on with it.
Burns rejoins the team from Mitsubishi and heads an expensive $50 million campaign, which also includes the services of Juha Kekkonen and Bruno Thierry.
Richard is for sure one of the future world champion, and he did a great season this year. He drove very well. We will have a strong team.
The Thierry Kekkonen signings left remaining Subaru driver Piero Liatti with no option but to accept an offer from Skoda, which makes its Group A debut next year. Colin McRae's 2-year, $16 million deal with Ford ended a 12-month chase by team bosses who clearly believe he's the only man to develop the new Ford Focus.
We've got the fastest driver in the world, and obviously we're very, very happy about that. It'll be difficult the first 6 months, but I feel confident that with Colin behind the wheel and the new technology and the Focus, that from the middle of the year I think we should be a competitive package.
Despite the major changes and jockeying that's gone on with drivers and teams late this year, there is still one plum job that remains for 1999. That is the number 2 driver at Ford, who will be Colin McRae's teammate. Management haven't confirmed who it will be, but have said they are open to offers.
But we're looking at a selection of drivers because we've got a 4-year, 5-year program with the Focus. We're looking at investing for the future, and I think it'll be quite a surprise to a few people, but we'll probably end up with sort of 3 or 4 drivers on the books.
Defending world champion Tommy Mäkinen is one of few drivers staying put. The 34-year-old Finn will be joined at Rally Art Mitsubishi next year by asphalt specialist Freddie Loix.
I think for 99, I like to do something very nice in the rallies I know very well, like Portugal, Spain, Sanremo, Corsica, Monte Carlo, and for the rest I still need to do 6 rallies. I never did, so I think I still have to do a big show next year.
Loix's position at Toyota will remain open. The European-based squad's hopes in 1999 will rest entirely on current drivers Carlos Sainz and Didier Auriol. Auriol was rumoured to be considering an attractive offer from Peugeot, which plans a return to top-flight competition mid-next year. But the Frenchman ended months of speculation by re-signing with Toyota last month. The Sainz-Auriol team are sure to start favourites for next year.
We have to make the car really a little bit better on the tarmac. At the moment on the gravel, I'm quite happy with the car, and I think it has been a very good year for Toyota.
Drivers and co-drivers have never enjoyed a more prosperous period. The competitiveness of all 4 major manufacturers contesting the World Rally Championship and the introduction of 3 new players, Seat, Skoda and Peugeot, to top-level competition, have all led to fatter pay packets and the promise of another exciting season.
Yes, and the rumours have begun that Barry Sheen and Lee Diffie are competing for that second drive at Ford next year, and Barry was training very hard this morning on the long drive from Perth. Felt like it anyway. We'll have more after the break. That was 1999. There's some unfinished business right here in the forests of Western Australia. Hang about.
Each of left plus 10, goal 50. Derecha primera con un poco de tierra, acaba de salir de buena más posible, quinta poco de tierra. Absolute left, one on his fence.
One of the hot spots this weekend in API Rally Australia will be around Mitsubishi Team Ralliart. Tommy Mackinnon, of course, hoping to win another World Championship. He'll get a step closer to that if he can get a win in this particular rally. And Richard Burns, hasn't he been on the charge in the first day or so of this particular rally? And team orders are definitely on the go this weekend to help Tommy win that championship. And also, there is a third car, the Australian Ed Ordinsky, who performed extremely well here last year and for only the second time has joined the World Championship in 1998.
In most motorsports, lack of dollars is a leash holding you back. When the budgets of leading teams run into tens of millions, you have to forgive Ed Ordinsky for not taking the step up to World Rallies full-time.
I'm in a difficult situation because clearly Australians, although we have the ability, given the right opportunities, to go as quickly as anybody else, none of us have had those opportunities of doing 16 rounds of the World Rally Championships.
Yes, Ed is the third driver for Mitsubishi Team Ralliart. He's in one of Tommy Mackinnon's successful World Championship cars, except...
Given enough time in the car on the test day, we can produce the same times as the regular drivers, but we take 20 laps of the track to do so. And that's purely a match practice thing. You know, Tommy Mackinnon can jump in the car, do the time on the first run of the day. We have to have 20 laps first to get up to his time. And rallying is a one-shot sport.
Ed and Mark have the money allocated by Team Ralliart to drive in 2 World Championship events. They finished 23rd in New Zealand, a rally notable for its foul weather and a struggle if you weren't driving a Corolla. Ed lost 10 minutes after a lose in day 3. Teammate Richard Burns, in a superior car, lost 15. While it's impossible to win with a dated car, Ed also faces slotting into a squad that's working together almost all year, developing setup, routine and tactics. Team Ralliart is focused only on driving Tommy Mackinnon to another World Championship.
We are actually working separately. We have a different, our own service, and he has his own. It's still 2 different teams.
It's hard enough to focus when you're not allowed to win, but perhaps even tougher for Richard Burns. He's switching to Subaru next year.
The package they offered me was better than what Mitsubishi could offer me, and it's a shame because Mitsubishi have put me in the spotlight by giving me the full championship this year. So it's a bit ironic that then someone else should come and get me, but it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, as far as we're concerned and as far as the team's concerned, we're still Mitsubishi drivers, Ralliart drivers, and you know that's how it'll be until after the REC rally later this month.
In the middle of this relentless push for prestige, knee-deep in the many millions it takes to make world champions, Ed Ordinsky plows on. Team Ralliart has 3 cars here. Don't you forget it.
Well, not enough common road drivers pay attention to this little item, and that is, of course, tyres. It is a very neglected aspect of Australian motoring, but in motorsport, it's a very, very important part of everything they do, not only on circuit racing, but in rallies too. And new technologies are constantly being sought by tyre manufacturers. John Smales has what a lot of people think could be a breakthrough in the World Rally Championship.
The rally roads of Western Australia are unique. They're called a ball bearing surface, and that's exactly what they are, because the rocks themselves are just like miniature ball bearings. Now, the problem with them is that when you're running across them, they tend to get caught in the tread of the tyre, so that instead of it being rubber against surface, it's actually metal against metal. Ergo, no grip at all. So what Michelin has done this weekend is develop a new tyre, what they call their motocross tyre. It's actually wider than the conventional tyre, and it has far more block patterns in them, and they're cut quite differently. As you can see, a cut there and a cut down here on the surface, on the side of the tyre. Now, the idea is, this time, when they hit the ball bearing surface, they spit the ball bearings out. So you've now got rubber to metal contact and maximum grip. That could be the secret weapon of the weekend. But curiously, not all drivers like the new tyre. In the Toyota team, Didier Auriol says it's sensational, but Carlos Sainz prefers the block pattern.
Okay, Didier is very, very aggressive when he's coming in a corner, and Carlos is very, very smoother when he's coming in a corner. The problem for the tires, or the difference, is not done in this kind of situation. The difference is made when they are driving quite faster. This is where they feel the difference.
And great to get a close-up look at the tyres here on Dean Herridge's car. He'll be a factor again this weekend in API Rally Australia, one of Australia's up-and-coming young drivers. And as the war in the workshops continues, we have a lot of action out on the road ahead of us this afternoon. RPM will be closing up pretty soon. We'll be back after the break to wrap it up, give away some prizes, take a closer look at all three classes, and then, of course, the big 2-hour telecast. So stay with us this afternoon on Network 10.
Hello, I'm Carlos Sainz. You are watching RPM in Channel 10.
Tommy, the penalty that was taken away from you
What
again.
do you discuss? What do you ask? I don't want to discuss anything. I don't have anything to say about that. It's done and that's it. Yeah, I said yesterday evening already that I was just follow the clock, not the lights. That's it. I don't have anything else to say. I don't want to even think about it. We are rallying today. Can you please forget?
What a dramatic rally this has been. API Rally Australia, Tommy Mackinnon, of course, with plenty to say there to John Smales. And the reason being that there's been a lot of controversy surrounding what could be a conclusive round in the World Championship. It's the second last round. We still go to the RAC Rally in England, but it can be decided here if Carlos Sainz can take a win and the others get a small number of points. There are so many possibilities, however. It's possible they could all finish equal on points. We'll just have to wait and see. But with the World Championship at stake, you can imagine the tempers are getting a little bit frayed and concentration is at a maximum. None of those three drivers in contention for the World Championship have been able to take a hold on API Rally Australia. In fact, the only driver to really take charge was Richard Burns on the first day. Since then, Carlos Sainz has had a lot of trouble trying to assert himself. Likewise, Tommy Mackinnon on the charge. Now, I'm having a bit of a giggle here because we're very crowded. This is the Bunnings final stage, and John Smales and Barry Sheed have been driving like Tommy Mackinnon and Carlos Sainz to get to this commentary position right now, but they're here at last. Barry, the atmosphere is incredible as we come into this final day.
Well, it's absolutely great, and you know, the thing to talk about is the Mackinnon thing, you know, when you consider in front of all those people, he jumped the start, everybody saw it, it's on camera, it's everything, and, you know, all the drivers are saying, well, hang on a second, there's regulations, you're not supposed to jump the start. He's got away with it, but I think, John, you know, you had a word with your mate, didn't you?
So I can tell you what, Barry, he's stronger than you are, too, with a push away, but I'm going to see him this afternoon and square off, or square up, perhaps. Look, Mackinnon was alleged to have jumped the start. People who saw it said he did. The time clock said he did as well. Late night stewards meeting last night determined that while he may have jumped the start, the way the start was run was allegedly wrong. This incident, Bill, hasn't gone away. Depending on who is placed where today, we could well see an appeal against the steward's decision last night, chasing World Championship points.
There's an enormous amount of pressure on the drivers. There's no doubt about that at this stage of the World Championship.
Well, I think, you know, the guy that your heart really goes out to is Sainz. As I said before, you know, he goes to bed last night thinking, oh, that's not too bad, you know, and he gets up this morning, all of a sudden, Mackinnon, instead of having a minute penalty, doesn't have a penalty. And it really does, it makes a bit of a mockery of the regulations, you know. I mean, you either jump a start or you don't. everybody saw him on television, all the drivers, and I just think it's wrong. You know, it doesn't do the sport any good, that kind of thing.
And just quickly, John, there's no doubt that Oriol, Kankinen and Richard Burns, who of course was brilliant on that first day, can all take a hand in this thing as well.
There are 6 drivers today who can win the API Rally Australia and play a major role in the determination of the 1998 World Rally Championship.
But let's hear from the leader going into the final day, Carlos Sainz with Lee Diffie.
Well, Carlos, a very positive night last night, very quick at Langley Park again. It sets you up well for today?
Yes, everything okay, but today we have found Bunnings very, very dirty, and being the first car is no chance. It's absolutely impossible. It's more rolling stones than ever, and it's very difficult.
Yesterday, I thought I heard that you may have been experiencing some tyre problems. How's your tyre choice today?
No tyre problems at all. Tires are working okay. It's not the problem of the tire, it's the problem of the surface.
So how are you going to overcome that today? What's going to get you to the end in front?
Well, I will try. I will keep trying, but now Colin is also very close. Tom is very close. Colin is starting position 6, 7, and he is having very clean roads, and he's taking that advantage.
A few longer stages now. Later on this afternoon, we'll be in with the small stage, the very final stage. How do you find that last one, the short one?
Well, I don't think it will be more. It's more like a show stage than anything else.
Would you like to comment on the incident with Tommy last night at Langley Park with the start line? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it was very clear, no, in front of, I don't know, 20,000 people, all the cameras. He jumped the start. It is a rule where it's very clear, like in Formula 1, when you jump the start, you have penalty, you have penalization. The bins say he jumped the start, but unfortunately we have, yesterday it was the 1 minute penalty, and today when I wake up this morning, I saw they took it away. For me, this is a scandal, and we cannot accept. The rules are for that. If the people accept this, then I don't know what to think, but maybe I'm in the wrong sport or something like that.
There's your rally leader, Carlos Sainz, and this round will be decisive in more ways than one. Plenty to talk about even after this thing is over and the race unofficially is concluded. Tens of thousands of people pouring in here to the Bunnings final stage, plenty more on their way, so it should be a marvellous atmosphere. But right now, let's go back to the first stage of API Rally Australia. A big crowd once again for that very special Langley Park Super Stage. Let's go to the action.
It's regarded as the showpiece of API Rally Australia, Langley Park. Well, not just the park, but more to the point, what the park is transformed into and the feast of action it provides. In Group A, Ed Ordinsky was the first of the Australians out.
Ed, you can't win the rally here, but it's possible to lose it on this stage.
Yes, of course, but it's a fantastic stage, isn't it? You know, you just you got to try and find that balancing act, and I think most drivers would be juggling with how they want to attack the stage.
Up against Toyota driver Yoshio Fujimoto, Ordinsky was in for a tough run in the older Mitsubishi Evo 3. Fujimoto did take the win, Ordinsky finishing stage 1, 18th overall. Next out, Australian rally champ Possum Bourne.
It's pretty nerve-wracking here, a lot of atmosphere and everything, and you just want to do a good job, lay down a reasonable time and park it for the night and go and think about tomorrow.
Bourne would begin stage 2 in 15th position. Neil Bates would go head-to-head with fellow Toyota campaigner Freddie Loix.
Neil, what do you hope to achieve on this stage?
Just to get around in a good time. We're running against Freddie, who I think will be very quick and hard to beat, so we'll just try our best and try and keep it straight.
And after getting a great start, Bates pushed him all the way, but was still some 9/10 slower than Loix. The encouraging thing was that Bates was in the top 10 in 9th. Ford's Bruno Thierry was able to get home some 0.4 of a second ahead of Piero Liati. The Italian had brief contact with one of the barriers and left him in 10th behind Neil Bates. The likeable British combination of Richard Burns and Robert Reid would be the first of the Mitsubishi Rally Art cars out on their one-on-one with Toyota's Didier Auriol. Auriol and co-driver Denis Girardet sent a message to the remaining competitors. He means business in Australia after blitzing the field with a 1 minute 32 lap, quicker than anyone. With only 2 pairings left, Oriole was looking good unless Colin McRae or Juha Kankinen could come up with something special. And displaying explosive speed and precision execution around the tight 2.2 kilometre course was the Ford driver who came out on top by 0.6 of a second. The first of 3 Langley Park special stages came down to what some may call the ultimate matchup, Mäkinen versus Sainz. With just 2 points separating these two for the World Championship, every single stage a 1/10 of a second count. The Toyota-Mitsubishi confrontation didn't disappoint, with it hard to separate them. But it was the reigning world champ who struck the first blow with a 0.3 of a second win over Sainz. And more importantly, matched Didier Oriole's 1 minute 32 lap time. The first stage would end in a draw.
Not a bad result tonight, that's good.
Not at all, it was good fastest time. It's good start for the rally.
And we'll be back with more action from API Rally Australia after the break as the build-up continues to this final stage here at Bunnings.
Hi, I'm Richard Burns and you're watching the API Rally Australia on Channel 10.
Welcome back to the forests of Western Australia. Well, they took the circus to the people of Perth on the first night. One quick stage at Langley Park. Then a full day on Friday. This is really getting down to business, and it turned out to be explosive.
The first leg of API Rally Australia took competitors 100 kilometres east of Perth to the historic town of York. Championship leader Carlos Sainz led the field away in the first of 5 high-speed stages. By the end of the Muresk second stage, Colin McRae and Juha Kankinen shared the fastest time. But McRae was faced with a timing discrepancy, with the Subaru team claiming their time was 5 seconds faster than the recorded time.
Bit of a time discrepancy from stage 2. Will that be sorted out?
Yeah, well, it'll need to be, because obviously we need to know what the times are before we can decide tactical moves.
When's that likely to happen?
Hopefully now, hopefully now.
The third stage was a turning point, with Frenchman Didier Oriole and Britain's Richard Burns leapfrogging to the top of the leaderboard, Oriole holding a 1/10 of a second advantage. Baracking marked the beginning of Richard Burns' charge. Following Sainz, teammate Mäkinen, Scott Colin McRae and the consistent Juha Kankinen, Burns ripped along the dusty track to gain a 20-second lead by the end of the stage.
We can't understand why we're so quick. You know, it doesn't feel all that fast to us, and we're a little bit surprised, but we just keep going.
Baracking also claimed the rally's first victim, Piero Liati, forced to retire after hitting a tree. Neil Bates's poor Perth luck continued, the Aussie suffering a badly punctured tyre, leaving him a whopping 6 minutes behind Burns.
We had a flat tyre, like 5k into a 28-kilometre stage. You've got to stop and change it.
Arch rival Possum Bourne's luck was running hot, the Kiwi finishing the 6th stage an impressive 3rd behind Burns and Sainz to place himself 9th overall. By the end of stage 6, fast Freddie Loix had moved into 7th, while Ed Ordinsky was well placed in 11th. Great news for Australia's Michael Guest, the Subaru driver maintaining a steady Group N lead. By the time the field had completed stage 7, it was clear the day would belong to Richard Burns. The Kev stage resulted in his 4th victory of the day, with his overall lead extended to 21 seconds over Mäkinen. The day's longest stage, 34 kilometres around Flins, proved to be Burns' finest hour, the 27-year-old blitzing the field, speeding half a second a kilometre quicker than his rivals.
I think when we found a lot in the braking and in the transmission before San Remo, when it translates onto gravel and the car's working really good.
But the stage took its toll on many drivers. Tommy Mäkinen's suspension broke 16 kilometres from home. The world champion dropped back to 3rd place, and he was in no mood for conversation. After trying to fix his suspension problems, the Finn incurred a 1 minute 20 time penalty for arriving late to a stage. But like a true champion, Mäkinen backed up to post the 2nd fastest time in the Helena stage. Of the Aussies, Neil Bates limped home after his share of bad luck, while Ed Ordinsky remained positive about his 12th placing. The Formula 2 lead changed hands several times. Early pace setter Kenneth Eriksson was overtaken by Alistair McRae and Gwyndaf Evans after experiencing gearbox problems, while Australia's Michael Guest held on to his lead in the Group N category. However, the day belonged to Mitsubishi's Richard Burns, who won 7 of the 9 stages contested in the Forest. In his wake were Didier Auriol, 1 minute and 7 seconds behind, followed by Carlos Sainz. McRae ended the day in 6th spot, while Tommy Mäkinen found himself more than 2 minutes off the pace.
And that brought us back to Langley Park for the second of 3 visits. Once again, a massive crowd, a carnival atmosphere, lots of fireworks in the air and on that amazing figure-8 circuit.
After the dust and danger of the Forest, the last stage of day 1 was to be in the carnival atmosphere of Langley Park. More than 10,000 people turned up for the showdown. Red hot from the Forest, Richard Burns was matched against second place man Didier Auriol. Celebrating the biggest day 1 margin of any World Rally Championship this year, Burns had very little to gain at Langley Park and a lot to lose. Burns backed off, a 5th place on 1 minute 33.1, a full second behind Auriol, but still more than a minute ahead after the day's competition. Leg 1 had simply been the best drive of Burns' career. Local honour was on the line. After a rotten day, Neil Bates found himself matched against arch-rival Possum Bourne. Bourne was lying 9th, Bates after his puncture 19th. But on Langley Park, Bates cut loose. His time of 1:34.1 was good enough for a strong 7th. Bourne was 2.1 seconds behind, 5 places down. Tommy Mäkinen too was on a charge. Paired with Juha Kankinen, Mäkinen muscled the Mitsubishi around Langley Park. The rear suspension still not right. He was 0.6 of a second clear of Kankinen. Mäkinen clocked 1:32.5, good enough for second place, just behind outright winner Didier Auriol. But the controversy of the night came from Carlos Sainz. The Spaniard arrived at Langley Park lying 3rd in the rally. He'd spent the day as the lead car, acting as a road sweeper, clearing the track of gravel and making it faster for those behind. It was not a position Carlos wanted on day 2. For him, 5th on the road seemed ideal, so at Langley Park he purposely backed off at the finish. Level pegging Colin McRae right to the end, he crawled across the finish line to finish 20th, dropping 6 seconds and 2 places in the rally. It's time he'll make up on leg 2 now that he's on a swept track.
To run back in the road is much nicer, much better. The road is cleaner. And last year on the second day we managed to catch up almost a minute on the guys driving in front.
An incredible day for Richard Burns, and everyone was wondering just how many more cards will be played before the end of API Rally Australia. In some way, paints a picture of the World Championship in 1998. As you can see, Freddie Loix, Carlos Sainz, the first of the title contenders, back in 5th place, with Colin McRae, one of the other contenders, and Tommy Mäkinen back in 8th place. Possum Bourne, marvellous again. He is so consistent and so steady through any rally, but of course in API Rally Australia, where he gave Neil Bates quite a big start after those first few stages, he was in the top 10. We have more action for you coming up as we go rallying again on the Saturday.
Hi, I am Didier Auriol of the team Toyota Castrol. You're watching API Rally Australia on Canal 10.
So Richard Burns, who won his first World Championship rally earlier this year, the Safari Rally in Kenya, has taken the lead in API Rally Australia after a single day. Now it's Saturday, another full day, finishing, of course, once again with the excitement of Langley Park. Let's go to the action.
After completely dominating the field throughout the first leg of API Rally Australia, Mitsubishi's Richard Burns and Robert Reid headed south of Perth for leg 2 with a commanding 1 minute 6 second lead over Toyota's Didier Auriol. Ford's Juha Kankkunen was a further 16 seconds away in third place, while World Championship contenders Carlos Sainz, Colin McRae and Tommy Mäkinen were 5th, 6th and 8th respectively. Mäkinen began the day brilliantly, clocking the fastest time on the 18-kilometre Murray Pine stage. He was 7 seconds quicker than Carlos Sainz and 8 seconds ahead of Richard Burns. Colin McRae's Subaru experienced drive shaft problems which lost him around 20 seconds. The field breezed through the short 8-kilometre Harvey Weir stage with little between them. And just when leader Richard Burns was looking like he was about to settle in for the long haul, a miscalculation turned his world upside down.
On the first of the Stirling stages, I cut a corner a bit too tight on the inside and rolled the car. The main time loss we had was we rolled the car back, it came back onto its wheels, but one of the turbo packs is crushed, so we lost quite a lot of power. And we had to do the rest of that Stirling and then the long one as well. And we lost about a minute 20.
Not only would Burns' lead disappear, his car would continue to cause problems despite the dedicated work of team mechanics. Carlos Sainz was now on top by 7 seconds from Oriol and Burns, but Tommy Mäkinen was the man of the moment. He'd already taken 5 of the 6 stages and was determined to exit Murray Pines 2, the final forest stage of the day, with yet another win. However, his rivals weren't about to lie down. Eventually, Mäkinen emerged the victor by 8 seconds from Colin McRae and a crucial 11 seconds ahead of Sainz. That narrowed the gap between Sainz and Mäkinen to 22 seconds as the field headed to Langley Park.
I couldn't come any faster. I really came flat out. Well, tomorrow it's going to be very difficult for me, but we will see.
Colin McRae is 59 seconds behind Sainz, and his chances of victory seem extremely remote, while brother Alistair has been performing brilliantly in Formula 2. The Volkswagen driver extended his lead over Gwyndaf Evans to almost a minute. Possum Bourne was again at the head of the Antipodean charge, ending stage 18 in 9th place overall, 4 minutes behind Sainz. Ed Ordinsky has been a model of consistency in his Mitsubishi Evo 3. He seems certain of yet another top 10 finish this year. And in Group N, Australia's Michael Guest is on fire. He heads world champion Gustavo Treyes by 53 seconds.
So Carlos Sainz, the only man who can actually win the World Championship right here in API Rally Australia, the second last round, takes control, but Tommy Mäkinen on the fly. This set up an incredible scene at Langley Park in the evening. Let's take a look at what happened there.
Langley Park was set to be the showdown of leg 2. Lionheart Richard Burns lost his match race to Didier Oriol. Juha Kankkunen won his against Freddie Loix. The outcome left Kankkunen and Burns incredibly tied in the rally, both of them exactly 47.9 seconds behind outright leader Carlos Sainz. And it was the clash between Sainz and Tommy Mäkinen the large crowd had come to see. This was the prelude to leg 3, the two titans head to head. And then the impossible happened. Almost too quickly for the eye to see, Mäkinen appeared to jump the start. At the finish, Sainz co-driver Lewis Moyer blew the whistle.
We saw that he jumped the start, yeah? And then my job as a co-driver in the team is to inform my team. As soon as we finish, I inform my team that Tommy Mäkinen has jumped the start, and then my job is over.
And officials agreed. The timing mechanism showed Mäkinen had jumped the start by 4/100ths of a second. It earned him a minute's penalty. Mäkinen's reaction was intense. Mäkinen's minute has dropped him to 6th place now, 1 minute 22.8 seconds behind Sainz. A mistake as quick as the blink of an eye may have cost him not only the rally, but also the world title. In an atmosphere laden with tension, the Mitsubishi team was dismayed.
It's not possible. It's not possible. I didn't jump, for sure.
At the end of the stage, Carlos Sainz was very angry. He came at you.
Yes,
what happened?
Of course, he has to try to do something because he's a bit worried about tomorrow.
Well, it would be very unfair that, even to consider that he would be starting with a minute 22 behind Carlos because, that's just not running. That's not the game we're playing.
Late last night, Mitsubishi entered its protest against the penalty.
Stand by.
Here are the results now. Carlos Sainz into the final day, leading Tommy Mäkinen, not by much. There it is, nearly 23 seconds there. Remembering this year, we're allowed to time to the 10th of a second in the World Rally Championship. Oriol up there, helping out his teammate Carlos Sainz by splitting him up with the other championship rival, Colin McRae, who's back in 6th place. Freddie Loix in the other Toyota Corolla World Rally car inside the top 10 with Bruno Thierry. Ossenborn, there he is, still holding 9th place. And Sebastian Lindholm making up the top 10. Setting up a marvellous final day of rallying on Sunday. 4 stages concluding right here at Bunnings. We'll come back with some marvellous action for you after the break on Network 10.
Hi, I'm Michael Guest, watching API Rally Australia here in Perth on 10, the home of motorsport.
Welcome back. This is API Rally Australia. You can see them there inspecting the final stage of the 1998 rally, the Bunnings course. That is quite deep water and will be just part of an explosive and very exciting aspect of this telecast. But right now, let's update you on what has happened so far today. Let's go to the first of the stages on the final day of API Rally Australia.
The final day of API Rally Australia began in a storm of controversy. The decision to grant Tommy Mäkinen a reprieve of his 1-minute penalty for jumping the start at Langley Park the previous night had rivals crying foul.
In the rules, they say that there's no definition of what a jump start means. For me, it means if you are starting before you have been given the signal to start, then you jump to start. So it's very, very strange.
The regulation says that if you jump a start, you get a minute penalty. What happens after that? There is nothing I can do about it.
Rally Art Mitsubishi team management were adamant Mäkinen had not jumped the start, claiming the rules are clearly not defined.
Tommy is adamant that he didn't do so, but certainly the start system, the lights and the beam were not in accordance with the FIA rules.
Mäkinen himself was having no part of the argument.
What do you discuss? What do you ask? I don't want to discuss anything. I don't have anything to say about that.
The man most affected by the decision, leader Carlos Sainz, was clearly rattled by the turnaround.
Angers me because it's not possible you go to sleep thinking one thing and then you wake up because the politics and the tricky things, and then they took it away. For me, it was very clear. The rules are clear in front of everybody, in front of 20,000 people, cameras there, being there. Sorry.
With only 5 stages to be contested, the chasing pack gave Sainz plenty to think about. Colin McRae, in particular, was in sensational form. The Scot, who started the day 1 minute behind the Spaniard, took the lead following the completion of the 3rd stage, Bunnings North. The disadvantage of running first was never more obvious. Carlos's seemingly unbeatable overnight lead was lost in less than 80 kilometres. With 2 stages remaining, just 4.7 seconds separated McRae, Mäkinen, Sainz and Burns. But on the penultimate stage, McRae suffered mechanical problems, losing more than 30 seconds, and Burns had an off, costing him any chance of victory. So after a day filled with drama both on and off the circuit, defending world champion Tommy Mäkinen heads to the grand finale 17 seconds ahead of Carlos Sainz and 24 seconds ahead of Didier Oriol.
And that's where it has to be here at Bunnings, a massive crowd forming. It is not easy to pack people into a forest area, as you would imagine, that is used only once a year for this type of event. Let's have